We are finally to lesson 9 that has to do with inequalities again. And this is absolute value inequalities. So we already solved absolute value equations. So the first one is the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 5. So what you do is, once the absolute value is isolated, which it is in this one, then we set it equal to the problem. And then we also set it equal to, we switch the sign here, and we switch the sign of that number. So now we graph it. So we have 5 here, colored in, and it goes that way. And we have less than or equal to -5, and it goes that way. So in this case, we have the negative infinity, and then we have -5 with a bracket, or we have the bracket 5 with infinity. Okay? And so the trick is whenever it starts out as greater than or equal to, it's always going to be an or. But you don't really have to memorize that, because if you do it right, it'll come out. This one, it's already isolated. So we keep with this, and then we also flip it and flip the sign of the number. And then we have x is less than or equal to 8 going this way, and then -8 going that way, and they meet in the middle. And so that would be an and. So the interval notation from left to right, it starts at -8 and it stops at 8. Okay, so they'll get harder, obviously. So we need to isolate the absolute value expression, and then we create two cases like we did, and then you solve both inequalities and graph them. And I'm going to pause for Mr. E again. Okay, so we will go down and do the first one. First couple should be easy because the variable is already isolated and pretty much done. So we keep the inequality, and then we flip the sign and flip the sign of the other number. And we just graph it. X is less than 7, and x is greater than -7. So they're going to meet in the middle. And then you can condense those since they meet in the middle. So you have x is greater than -7 or less than 7. And then they don't go any further, so it's -7 is the first one you come to, and then 7. So this would be that. And then we're going to flip the sign and flip that side. So we got -4 going that way, and we got going that way. Oh, that one should be colored in also. Okay, and then we have negative infinity with a -4, or 4 included to infinity. Okay, on this one, the absolute value is isolated. So you're going to go ahead and do x minus 1 is greater than 6. And then you have x minus 1 is less than -6. And so on this one, we're going to add 1 and we get this. And on this one, we're going to add 1 and we get -5. So these would be ors, because x greater than 7 is going that way, and less than -5 is going that way. So we're going to have negative infinity with -5, or 7 with infinity. Okay, I'm going to pause it and you do the next one. Okay, and that's what you should have. If you look at mine, it would be condensed into this. Okay, when we go on to the back, you should be able to do number 5 also. So pause it and do it. Okay, if you look at number 5, see if you got the same. And then number 6, first we have to get the absolute value isolated. So we are going to keep that as absolute value, and we're going to add 1 to each side. Now we can set it equal, or not equal, but now we can do this and then do x plus 3 and switch that and switch that. And then go ahead and solve it. So x is less than 3 and greater than -9. So they are going to connect. So the furthest thing is -9, and it's going to go through 3. And since it connects, we can put this in the middle. X is greater than -9, less than 3. Okay. If you look at number 7, if you want to isolate that absolute value, it's being times by 3. So we're going to divide by 3. We have 2x plus 8, and then 10. And that's the absolute value of that. So I'm going to leave it like that instead of dropping the absolute value down. I know I'm done there. I'm going to flip the sign and do -10. Solve it. Pause it if you need to. You solve it so you make sure you're getting it right. If you're just writing down my answers, that's not helping you. Okay, and then it should be less than or equal to -9 going that way and bigger than 1 going that way. So it's infinity, or negative infinity, I should say. -9 included, and then 1 or infinity, and there we go. So you go ahead and do the rest. Remember, if we're dividing by -2, we do the opposite. And on number 9, you do the adding first. You add or subtract first, and then you multiply or divide. Remember, you're isolating the absolute value. So I'm going to have you pause it and see what you get while I write them in. Okay, I think I'm losing my mind. I couldn't remember if I showed you number 7 and did it with you. So we divided by 3. Number 8, we times by a -2. So since we times by -2, that flipped that sign. I almost didn't catch that. And so then if this is the original equation or inequality, then the other one is the sign is flipped with the -12. Okay, the next one, you should be adding 3. So that would make that 50. And then you divide by 10. So that would make that 5. And then you have the absolute value isolated. And then you flip it. And then you have x is less than, because you're adding 4, adding 4. And make sure you're checking your graphs and your interval notations also. So less than -1 and more than 9. Whoops, I did not mean to, that should not be colored in. Okay, and then it's negative infinity with the -1 or 9 infinity. And last but not least, go ahead and pause it if you can. Remember, you add and subtract first, and then you do multiplying and dividing. So you should be minusing 11, which gives you 4. And then to get rid of multiplying by a half, we're going to times by the reciprocal. We're going to times by 2 over 1 because that cancels out. So we're going to times by 2. So now we have 4x minus 4. And let's see here, we minus 11, we had 4 times by 2, so we have 8. So 8. And then we have 4x minus 4 greater than or equal to negative 8. And then our answer here in the end will be negative 1 once you work it out. And this will be 3. And so we have negative 1 colored in, 3 colored in, and it's less than that one, greater than that one, so it's in the middle. So it only goes from negative 1 to 3. All right, and make sure you're practicing this also.